Yes, my name is Kuldeep Singh Randawa. I've now done a number of videos which will be embedded onto the website www.realrandawa.com. This video concerns itself with a report that was prepared by Paul Hu of Westmar Consultants Inc. I believe this professional engineer has since moved on to another firm, but he will be located and contacted as part of an investigation. This report was submitted to the Engineering Association and was then used as part of an investigation against me in a quasi-judicial proceeding that was held in April 2005, the matter of APEC BC versus Randawa. The entire process was actually a witch hunt. It was nothing to do with a regulation of a profession, and it was not about finding what mistakes were made and what lessons can be learnt. What I'm finding is that many institutions in Canada are actually involved in criminal activity. And so I will be talking about this further in other videos. But for now, let's focus on this report because this report actually has the evidence of the false statements. If we look at the first page of this report, the first sentence basically says that the so-called water tank collapsed on August 2nd, 2003. That is a false statement. The second sentence says that Westmar Consultants Inc. was retained on September 2nd, 2003. That is also a false statement. The third sentence basically says that my engineering company, Westmar Consultants Engineers Limited, was the firm that designed the water tank. That statement is also a false statement. And then it goes on to say that further design work is going to be done by Westmar Consultants Inc. on the proposed design changes after the investigation of the collapse was being done in this report. So that itself is a conflict of interest, because this report was actually submitted as an expert report and used by the association to proceed with this investigation. A person who becomes an expert report witness cannot then be involved in further design work. That is a conflict of interest which I don't have to talk about, nor do I need to explain this to other professional engineers out there, and especially for the association. It simply is not done. The evidence of the false statements is actually in the report itself. And just remember that I'm just talking about one page here. The calculation in the appendix is dated April 6, 2003. The calculation is for a hoop tension for a collapsed tank. In other words, Westmar Consultants Inc. were retained prior to April 6, 2003. So the statement that they were retained on September 2nd, 2003 is false, and the evidence is right there. The fact that the calculation is for a collapsed water tank indicates that the collapse occurred prior to April 6, 2003. And so the statement made by Westmar Consultants Inc. that the tank collapsed August 2nd, 2003 is also false, and the evidence is right there in the report. So just by looking at that one report, the association could have easily have assessed that this evidence does not make any sense. And so the entire matter should have been closed, and an investigation should have been done against Paul Hu. But instead, they went to a lawyer, Robert Hunter of Bullhauser and Tupper. And I believe that this lawyer is the critical lawyer who's involved in this scam, working with the association and working with the insurance company. This was an insurance regulatory fraud where my liability insurance would pay for someone else's screw-ups. As far as I'm concerned, Paul Hu could be the other engineer, or it could be Derek Hodgkinson, who was the former retained engineer for my client, Blue Water Systems Limited. And there was also another tank in Princeton. When the disclosure was not being made, I actually drove to Princeton and had taken some pictures of that tank in Princeton and calculated over the weekend, and then attended the hearings in April 2005, where I had said basically that the tank in Princeton had more stresses and higher stresses, and it had not collapsed. And no justification was done on that basis, that this tank had not collapsed for 10 years despite having higher stresses. So the question was, why did this other tank collapse in Venezuela? The truth is, there was no water tank even built. This was a scam of the grandest proportions possible at an engineering level, and it happened in Canada, a nation that claims to stand behind human rights. So the evidence of this is clearly there for the association to now commence an investigation against Paul Hu and an investigation against those staff who were employed by the association, who clearly accepted a fraudulent report and did not check that report and its contents, and at the very least is misconduct. And also to investigate the peers, those 3 professional engineers who were supposed to be like judges, who clearly knew that you cannot design a structure that's considered as a water tank to a building code, and having those invalid load cases and not even understanding what a concept review is, as was proven in the previous video. So I want all those engineers to be investigated, because that is my right to file a complaint, and if it's a criminal matter, the RCMP can start. And I will now continue on to the conclusion. Thank you.